What's going on, Shadow Fighters? It's BossTheModern right here, and welcome back to yet another Shadow Fight 3 video related, but we're not in the game itself. Yes, we are actually going to be doing something different, as I was saying for this video. This video is going to be ranging all the perks from tier D to tier S based on what I do know by the perk itself, and also experiences that I may have with the perks, because I have all the perks. I know what all of them do. I can try to explain all of them. If I happen to forget some of them, then I'll definitely try to search them up and actually get a fresh reminder, because I pretty much have the full experience in the game and will definitely know what to do with what. So we have a row down there, as you guys can see, with all the perks. I just roughly cut up the photos and set up this recording right here, so it all works. This app can work, and definitely tested it out, and it turned out that it is working. So without anything further to say, let's actually hop into the purpose of this video, which is to range some perks based on my experience. So we're going to be starting all the way from rares to the legendary perks. That's pretty much how the photo order that I've been chosen from, where I was cropping through all of these photos. And also, if you guys are wondering, I'll be also doing the perks like fortification, poison skin, that applies to both armor and helm. They are now considered as one kind of perk together, so you guys will know that in a little bit. I may have chosen two of those in some occasions, but I'll be figuring out as we're walking around in here. So we're going to be starting with electroshock. Now electroshock is a damage reduction, well, a defense reduction perk, which you can pair with offensive kind of perks. You can basically use this along with offensive perks to boost the damage even more. So it helps as a damage booster, and it's also one of the perks that applies to both helmet and armor, so it's going to be considered all as one, as I said. But the downside to this perk is that, well, it had a moderate cooldown. It has a moderate duration of 3 seconds, but if you get knocked down by a crit, you basically thrown away this perk. So if you want to use this perk on the most secure way, and also in the best way possible for your own purpose, you try to back it up with rock. That's what I did with the liquidator set, if you guys did watch earlier. So because of this defense reduction, that it can actually reduce the defense, I'm gonna put it somewhere on B. Not A, I'm just gonna freaking put it somewhere in B, because it does reduce defense. It reduces half the enemy's defense, which is actually really neat. I was thinking like it could be between A and B because of that, but then again, if you get knocked down, that the perk will be getting used up. So next up we have fortification, and this weakens the enemy's defense. I think it's the same as electroshock, and in a dynastic perspective, there's no perks that will help it do such a thing. Like, it reduces the enemy's defense. It's the same as electroshock, but for a dynastic point of view, you don't have perks that back you up after falling, just like rock. And because of that, it's like between B and C. But this fortification, wait, I might have been saying it wrong, really. It reduces the enemy's damage, didn't they? Well, I probably have just been forgetting some things right here, man. And I've been describing this perk wrong, so excuse me right there, because fortification is actually a perk where you reduce the enemy defense. Actually, let me look up the Shadow Fight 3 on the phone right here, so that I can actually check out these perks for myself. That was reducing the enemy, well, it was reducing enemy defense or attack. It was pretty much the same as, if I'm not mistaken right here. Well, let me check it out a little bit right here. Technical difficulties for this kind of video, but hopefully you guys will bear it out. So let me see right here. I kind of forget these perks. That's what I kind of expected right there. It reduces the enemy's damage. Okay, so this basically helps. Well, what am I supposed to say? It helps survive combos. I've been looking at this perk because someone was posting on Facebook about this perk, and it is not that bad. But the downside to this perk, now that I know what it really is that fortification is mostly designed for combos, to tackle combos, and in order for it to trigger, you have to get hit, and the chances the chances that you have for it to trigger, because there's a chance for it to trigger, makes it a little bit risky kind of a defense there, because you have to get hit in order for it to activate. And if you don't activate, if this doesn't activate, like if it's a lower perk, then chances are you may still receive quite a bit of damage, but it will limit some of the damage, but not in the manner that I would like it. So for that manner, I will be putting it in C in that way. I will be putting it in C because it helps only on enemies' defense. Another downside to fortifications by the damage reduction is that the enemy that you're facing against, if you face a legendary player, fortification is pretty much a thrown away perk, because they are slow attacks and they do slow attacks, and its perks last 2 seconds. That's why I put it pretty much in C. So next up we got shielding, which is to increase your defense whenever you get hit, and that is also something I kind of start doubting whenever I hear these things. Okay, shielding, you get more defense, and it's only 2 seconds of defense, and it's just like 50%. I'm not even sure if it can increase, but if it does increase, that's pretty neat. But you still have to get hit for it to do the same thing. It's kind of like reverse. It's kind of like reverse version of the fortification. So for that matter, it pretty much have the same aspects. It lasts the same amount of time as fortification, and therefore I just gotta put it in C, not B. Freaking C. There we go, man. Because shielding is working in the same fashion as fortification. It's just that you get more defense. So both are like synonyms of each other. That's why I put it on C, because they both have the same kinds of advantages and disadvantages. You just get more defense, but the disadvantages are pretty much the same. Now we go over to the Shadow Leech. Now Shadow Leech is a really good build if you go against an accumulator build. Basically, what I mean by an accumulator build is a build that is focusing on gaining as much shadow energy as possible. With Shadow Leech, you can combat the accumulator build, and you can have damage emphasizers that will help the Shadow Leech become better. So I would put it between B and A, because the Shadow Leech can actually help into preventing a player, let's say in a PvP perspective, it can actually help prevent a player from from actually trying to accumulate shadow energy if his build was meant to do so. So shortly said, it's gonna be put on A. Now we get to accumulation. Oh, that's kind of ironic, because I was mentioning accumulator perks, accumulator builds, whenever I was talking about Shadow Leech. Now accumulation, though, it is giving you, it's good for accumulator builds, but it's pretty much a standalone perk, so you can't really do anything with it. And also a good thing is they can knock off your helmet, doesn't fatigue anything, so you pretty much gotta go with it. But it doesn't have any emphasizers, so this perk is pretty much a standalone perk, because you only get shadow energy from critical hits. That is the real deal of this. It's like you only get shadow energy from the hits, from when you get critical hit. So for that though, it's kind of like between B and C, because it's a small portion of that crit damage that's gonna be, and well, it does boost, but I would put it on C, because it helps in accumulators. But if I was talking in different views, personally, I don't really use shadow energy to combo that much, but maybe in PvP it should. So it's like between B and C. It's between B and C, but I kind of put it in C because it's a portion. It's not full damage. If it's full damage, then it actually would have been a lot, because crit damage is still good. I feel like, yeah, it might be. I might be considering putting on B, to be honest. Let me put it on B. And this is hard to put. Next up is Shadow Charge, huh? So Shadow Charge is trying to get some of that portion received as shadow energy. So you basically can use this as a accumulator build, and it's also the same in the same manner as accumulation. So Shadow Charge and accumulation can be really good for making an accumulation build as a pure herald, to say so the least. Well, you can actually just put it on the helmet, because pretty much these two are put on the helmet. Those are the rare perks on the herald helmet. So for that though, but it's damage. So basically it's a little bit different, because crit critical hits can happen occasionally from Legion and Dynasty, while Heralds are timed and calibrated. And still though, for that, I'm just gonna be putting it in the same line as B. I would like to put it between B and A because damage is what you get, and then those are gonna get Shadow Energy. So I would actually put it on the not S but A for that purpose. Next up we got Apothic Barrier, which is a standalone perk. It's a standalone defensive perk which can only trigger whenever you enter Shadow Form. Well, whenever you add the Shadow Forms, you have to activate Shadow Form in order for it to activate, because it activates only when you exit Shadow Form, and does when you have that defense. But it is most cases not gonna be that you're gonna make a turning point, because usually the turning point of the battle, whenever you play regular battles, and pretty much in PvP, is when you enter Shadow Form. And when you do so, maybe the defense is gonna have to say something for it. But it happens occasionally. So for that, I'm just gonna be putting a C. It is perfect for Judge build. It's perfect for the Judge because the Judge can enter Shadow Form and hit, and after that they exit Shadow Form after doing a Shadow ability. That's how the Judge set works. Now I get Critical Mass. Now Critical Mass was before crit charger, like it increases the crit damage as I try to fight. But now it's a block breaker. And Block Breaker can catch me by surprise. Pretty much, Block Breaker can catch me by surprise, and it's basically of basic attacks. But I don't see it often. The percentage of this is relatively low. Basically, I wouldn't really mind the percentage, but for this case, how much percentage it is to try to break through the block is actually kind of mattering for that, and I will definitely put it on C. Freaking C right there. So next up we got Prepared Strike. Prepared Strike is a one-time usage perk, so you basically like remove the perk slot after those 5 seconds of boosted damage. It is really good with the brand new Shadow Artisan set that we have right there, because Shadow Artisan set actually starts with a crit shot within like the first 2 seconds of the match, so you can use it that way. Other than that, if you get hit, your perk is just going to be thrown away. So for that, I'm just going to be putting on D. I'm sorry, Prepare Strike, but that's where you go, because in most cases it is something to try to give a head start of the battle, but it's a high risk for a high reward. So for that, I'm just gonna be putting on D. Next we got Precision, in which is a very dangerous perk to put on a hero weapon. It can be emphasized by multiple damage emphasizes, and I can definitely imagine in the mixed build that this perk can be really dangerous for that. So I would actually put it between A and S for that matter, because you can actually put a lot of damage emphasizers, and people would like to try to hit the opponents and do a lot of damage. That's pretty much the case of Shadow Fight 3 combat right here. All of these other aspects where you increase defense and decrease defense, they are the part of the retaining the damage, but the precision right here can emphasize and be emphasized. That's what makes it really strong. It can emphasize damage based perk. It can emphasize a perk that requires a portion of the damage that does something, and it can also be emphasized by a damage emphasizer like Vaporization. A Vaporization can emphasize Precision, while Precision can emphasize Time Bomb, and that's what makes it a really dangerous perk. If you pair those 3 together, you have a really dangerous build. So therefore, I'm actually putting on S. Now, Vengeful Tiger is a standalone perk, because you only have it for Dynasty, and for a Dynasty point of view, the Vengeful Tiger is only activating whenever you get shocked. It's only to try to make fair fights, and for that reason, because of that, I'm just gonna be putting it on B, because it makes fair fights, but really it doesn't make that big of a turning point. Next we got Backstabber. Backstabber is really good for combos. Dynasty Faction is actually really well known for combos, and I've seen the true potential of the Backstabber. There are some circumstances where Shaman combos where Backstabber will activate and actually do the rest of the job if the enemy bot is blocking. This this perk will also increase the damage if I actually happen to chain the combos and put myself in the way behind the opponent so that I can actually get the damage increase and the block ignore it. For that, I'm going to be putting it on A because of that kind of potential to chain together some combos. Really nasty. If you pair that together with damage emphasizes, you can make this really dangerous, to say so the least. Repeller. Now, this is actually not commonly used, and it is great for playing defensively if you actually block a lot. I think in PvP perspective, it would actually be blocking, and that you can actually increase the damage. And it can also be helped with some emphasizers, if I'm not mistaken, like vaporization, if you're going to be doing a mixed build. So for that, I'm just going to be putting on B. I'm just going to be putting it straightforward on B because it can block. You can block and do damage, and in a PvP perspective, I can definitely find that topic relatable. For this revenge perk, it is a damage increase whenever you receive a crit. And the good side is you get a damage increase. The bad side is the downside is it's the same thing as these short-lasting perks like electric shield, fortification, and damage absorption. Not damage absorption. It was shielding. So shielding, electroshock, and fortification. That is the downside of that, and that means that if you get hit by a crit, well, you pretty much gotta have that. It actually lasts for a while though, so it is meant to. It actually lasts like 5 seconds, if I'm not mistaken, right here. I'm checking out the perks right here because I want to verify what I say, although you guys can't see, unfortunately. And what it says is 5 seconds. Yeah, so 5 seconds, meaning that they purposely did that so you can actually land one strike. And that's it. But if you pair it with rock, again, if you pair it with rock that help you stand, it's going to be better. So for that, I'm going to be putting on B. So next up, we're going to be having Iron Grip. Iron Grip is a standalone perk which is all about trying to not lose your weapon. And here's a note, you cannot pair Iron Grip with Retribution because they are working separately from each other. Now, I already had a theory whether or not that Iron Grip can work harmoniously with Retribution, in which is going to make a really nasty damage boost, to say so the least. But since it works standalone by and helps you not lose your weapon in case because when you lose your weapon you deal less damage, and the damage will be according to the armor that you have. And if you basically don't like losing your weapon, this is a go-to perk for you. I'm going to be putting it on B because it can help you as a legionary not to lose a weapon, and given the fact that legionaries are the ones with the slowest kinds of attacks, so it's within the topic, spot on within the topic when it comes to legionary weapons and the problems of actually getting shocked whenever because of their slowness. Now we move on to the epic perks. So we finally sorted out the rare ones. Now it's trying to put up the epic perks. So we're going to be starting off with Poison Skin, and Poison Skin is a really nasty one. If you pair it with the third upcoming perk right here, you're definitely going to be doing a damage reflector perk, damage reflector build. And it is a really dangerous one to put onto your armor. It basically reflects all the damage. The enemy will receive the same kind of damage as you did, and therefore I'm gonna be putting it in between A and S. I would say A because there's nothing really that. Well, I would like to put it on S really because this perk right here doesn't have any emphasizers, but as a almost standalone perk, it can do a lot of damage. It helps even out the battles for a Dynastian, and this actually solves whenever Dynastian will have a problem with their combos. So it's like between A and S for my own part. It's between A and S. So like I want to put it on S because it reflects all the damage and can make a Dynastian player really dangerous. Now for the weakness. Weakness has the same problem as the fortification because there's no backup perks that can actually back it up, and it only lasts 2 seconds while the damage reduction is there. So if you want to pair fortification with weakness, that's up to you, but the weakness actually triggers whenever you hit your opponent, which is kind of why do you want to put weakness whenever you hit your opponent? Because it says right here, reduce enemies hit damage by 50%, and it has to be on the weapon hit. So Dynastian is made for combos, so whenever I see these kinds of advantages, it's mostly to be put on a Dynastian's Legionary weapon like staffs or chain knives. Chain knives do have combos. Not really recommended to put on the combo like weapons like nunchucks, and especially not match blades, because you're just gonna be throwing away your weakness perk. So for that, I'm just gonna be putting it on D right here, because sorry weakness, but it's only for the Dynastian Legionaries kind of weapon, so it limits the option of actually using the potential of the weakness. So yeah, there are some perks that I've never really used, but I still evaluate from the point of views that I do get when I associate this perk. Regen helps you get tanky, paired with Poison Skin, and you have a phenomenally dangerous Dynastian on your way. That's just a quick definite S right there, because it helps Dynastian survive a little bit longer in the most cool ways, in the most defensive ways possible, for a Dynastian to perhaps be fragile after not getting into a combo. So that is something that you can actually help for your essential survival. Now we have bleeding. Now bleeding does not, okay, just listen out, it does not do 100%. It does increase in percentage though during the higher upgrades, but it does not, okay? It is a damage over time perk, and can be emphasized with the offensive kinds of perk, which is going to be emphasizing it. It does not emphasize, and for that I'm just going to be giving it the definite A spot. For lifesteal though, it is actually going to be combating the regen. It is a bit, I kind of feel like it's between A and S, because it combats the regen perk. It actually combats the regen perk, or Poison Skin really, because regen is just onto the player who gets the regen, but the regen, I think this perk actually does challenge both of these kinds of perks right here, both of the Poison Skin and the regen, because whenever they take damage after doing the reflect, you can actually take all of the health and actually try to play with the health bar with the battle right here. So if you actually choose lifesteal while the Dynastian have that, basically I think Legionary's lifesteal is actually what's gonna be causing a little bit trouble with this kind of reflector build, because it steals life, so you basically can't get life back while the opponent is trying to, oh, I deflate all that damage to you, and then he still gets damaged because the regen is working. Not that Poison Skin can regen itself. So I would actually put it on S. You might not agree on this, and you can definitely tell your list of this, because it's all perks together, and I don't know how long I've been speaking right here, but I'm just going to be iterating shorter right here. Amplification. It's only working on Shadow ability. It works only, I will going to be putting on C really, because it only works on the first Shadow ability, and personally I'm not really into that, to going to Shadow ability combos. It only works on the first Shadow ability, and after that nothing else happens. So if you want this to actually be having its full potential, it's on the judge set. So therefore I'm putting it on C. Deterrence drains Shadow abilities, drains the enemy bar whenever you hit your enemy with Shadow ability. It can be really good for instances when the enemy's Shadow bar is almost full, but you manage to get it there first. I'm going to be putting it on A because it's topic relatable, that people will be using Shadow energy, and in PvP perspective that can be really nasty for an enemy to figure out whenever they see it. Deflection, it's only a 50% reduction of the damage always. It's only gonna increase the chance, but I gotta be putting on B because that's the only defensive method for a hero, alongside with the Apothic Barrier, which can only be activated whenever you get hit. Whenever you get, not hit, but whenever you exit the Shadow form right there and actually get the bonus defense. This is activated all the time, but it only halves the damage, and nothing else can really help emphasize this perk. That's what I'm putting on B. Now this is called Private Protection, which is starting off with a 5-second protection, and it's really good for combos, but not good against Legionaries. So for that, I'm going to be putting it on C, because it does great defense, but it has the same problem as Fortification, pretty much, and shielding. And now we got Recharge, which is really good for accumulator builds. It actually more than doubles I don't know if it triples the damage as a recharging, but it actually can help scare the opponent a little bit. It can undermine the opponent, therefore I'm putting it on A. You can undermine the opponent if you use recharge and hit with your weapon a lot. Discharge is the opposite of recharge, and which also can help if you combine those two epic perks together in a hero weapon to undermine your opponent and actually make sure that you get the shadow energy first. Really good for Void Warden build, because it is purposely made for Void Warden to try to take away some shadow energy while you're building the contamination, to make sure that your opponent will just forget about using the shadow form, meaning that you are the ones who are going to be open and pressure the opponent, pressure to the battle that way. So for that, I'm going to be giving you the A spot, because actually I did not mention both of these perks can also be emphasized by damage offensive emphasizers. Now we get Shadow Kick, which is a standalone perk, and it only helps into boosting kicks, shadow abilities, accumulation. So if you want that, that's pretty cool, but I'm just going to be putting on B for that kind of purpose right there. So now we're moving on to Pluck. Pluck is a really nasty perk, because Dynastian faction can actually just willingly, in a combo, shock their opponents with this kind of perk, which definitely is going to be trying to undermine the opponent and put the opponent in a really hard situation whenever they're without a weapon, lost all of their perks of a weapon, and can actually kill the vibes of legionaries and heralds. Definitely going to be putting an S, because it's really dangerous whenever it triggers. So the only way to actually make it not trigger is to not get it by combo. That's pretty much it. So using it in a Dynastian's Legionary will not be effective, but since Dynastian is meant for combos, that's why I put it on S and makes it really dangerous. Now we move on to Recollection right here. I don't even know how long I'll be talking, but this is how we're gonna go. This is how we're gonna go right here. Unfortunately, let me just tell you guys that way. So Recollection is to collect some shadow energy after getting a head hit. It's good for accumulation, but really it's a standalone perk. It's a standalone perk, and you can use it for accumulator builds, and legionnaires aren't really meant for accumulator. They're only meant for survival and damage. But if you want to accumulate, that's really good. But it deserves a B spot from my own point of view. Retribution, pretty good if you want to boost the damage of your shocked character. So for that, I'm gonna be putting it on A, because it is quite relatable. It's quite relatable. Now, Iron Grip is to not lose your weapon, but if you have to lose your weapon, you can try to equalize the damage reduction that you get from the fist by just putting Retribution, so that you actually do some extra damage along the way. And not only that, not only is the physical damage going to be added, I was actually thinking, oh, maybe the weapon damage is also going to be increased, but that doesn't matter. But you can actually pair it with Predator, which makes it deserve the A spot. That's why it can actually be really good. So if you pair with Predator, you basically become a Predatorian Predatorian barehanded legionary. And by that, we have Predator right here, which is to undermine your opponent in the most fashionable way possible. But the downside of it is that it won't trigger. It won't trigger if you don't get your opponent low, but usually it will end in the opponent getting low, and that's when this will trigger to just pressure the opponent to actually try to do a move, and therefore putting it on straightforward A spot. Stone Skin reduces the damage, it limits the damage to 14% of your health, can make you really tanky. It's a standalone perk, and because of that 40% health, if you combine it with other kinds of protection perks for Legionary, this deserves an A spot right there. Steel Foot surprises me in the same manner as I would say with Critical Mass, but Steel Foot can actually help do the regular damage. It is not a block breaker, it is just try to knock down the opponent and to try to extend my combos. And for a Legionary purpose, I'm actually just going to be putting on B. You might be surprised because you gotta be thinking, oh, it's actually an A perk because it's really good to try to extend some combos. It is only good for extending some combos, and it can catch me on surprise whenever that happens. So I may expect this amount of chance, but this amount of chance of how many attempts that I try to kick the opponent, I don't really know. So that's why I put it on B, because it can catch me by surprise and actually ruin my combo in a little bit. And next we have Breacher. Breacher is really nasty and can be really good in a PvP perspective when people are just gonna be standing right there blocking. definite A. We got Shadow Bird. Percentage is low, and it's relatable to the Liquidator. Because Liquidators drain Shadow Energy, this can drain Shadow Energy. It works in the same fashion though as Discharge. So basically this perk is pretty much the same as Discharge, if you guys are not mistaken, it might be, because it does the same way. But Discharge, by the way, it is potent. It is more potent. Although they have the same low percentage, but it's more potent. But both are pretty much the same kind of perks. I'm definitely gonna be putting it on A right there, despite the low chances of both of the perks. But they both feature the same thing, just that there's actually different amounts of how much Shadow Energy is burned, because they both lose Shadow Energy. That's why they both are synonyms of each other. Moving on to Poison. And Poison is pretty much a really dangerous. You can emphasize Poison. Poison does not emphasize other perks, unlike Precision. That's what I mean right there. But since I can emphasize the damage and do more than double damage in the damage over time, dangerous, very dangerous. And now we got something right here. So I got damage absorption, which is to reduce the damage, and unlike shielding, you basically get hit, but the damage that I get from that hit, it's gonna be that damage that gets reduced. That's why this perk is a little bit more relatable and good for defense. A perk right there. I feel like my throat's burning after all this kind of talk. What's happening to me, man? Anyways, 2 damage returns, which was unintentional, but damage returns helps even out the battle in the same manner as Poison Skin. Difference is that damage return is a chance to return some of the damage, while Poison Skin is a chance to return all the damage to the opponent. So by that, A perk. Well, I have to kind of remove that thing though, to be honest. Alright, so Shadow Affinity, nope. And it's gone. Alright, let me take it for later then. Gosh dang it. Anyways, let me scroll back if I can. Can I? Well, this kind of function is a little bit slow though, not gonna lie. It's pretty slow. Weirdo. But anyways, so we got Shadow. That's Vaporization. Vaporization helps regulate Shadow Energy whenever you pair it with Shadow Draining perks. Really good. I must say, it really good. Helps with Precision. It helps with it's basically a damage emphasizer, straightforward right there. Whenever the enemy has more Shadow Energy, then you will do more damage, and by that, the damage will raise up to a certain percentage, will affect Precision and all the other kinds of offensive perks that will take damage proportion to do something. So for that, this sucker deserves an S. The same thing over here. I'm not gonna be thinking about that. Time Bomb. Time Bomb does not. Time Bomb same as Poison. Straightforward S. And let me see right here. It's a little bit different though than Poison, because Time Bomb, they both behave similarly. The difference is that Time Bomb is gonna take the full time it takes before all the damage is transferred, while Poison does the same thing. But it's just different. It's just synonyms of each other, so therefore they're both on the same kind of spot. Now we got Transfusion. If you like to get yourself some healing after getting that heavy damage, which is actually going to be making a turning point, A perk right there. Shadow Remedy, it's only used once per battle because the judge was introduced. That's why Shadow Remedy was only used once, because if people manage to chain together 3 attacks, go into Shadow form, and so it goes on, then you just gotta get a lot of healing and make an unfair battle right there. So for this 24% of healing that you're gonna get, this somewhat okay banish that you get from entering Shadow form, I'm gonna consider putting it on B. It makes a turning point, but that's the only moment that you have. If you manage to enter, if you have an accumulator build, then if you use this, well, you can banish yourself, but then you cannot banish any more of that. Wolverine, boost damage, although disadvantage cannot be used on Dynastian's Legionary, but the advantage is that Dynastian have combos, so therefore I'm going to be putting it on a perk. Good damage booster and damage emphasizers can definitely help it all together. Interference, really good for pressuring opponents with combos, and I've seen that interference can last really long, like 7 seconds of interference if it's on its maximum level. So for that, with a lot of pressure to the opponent, you can definitely combine it with some other perks to undermine your opponent, and thus giving it the deserved A perk. Now let me see right here. For Rising Tide, very good for accumulation, also activates whenever you shadow form. Same goes to the recharge right there. And for that though, it can actually help prolong if you manage to do some combos, that is. You know, PvP perspective that might not be, but it deserves an... Does it really deserve an A? Really? For my own part? And now it's gone. God dang it, maybe I have to pick up after that. Well, let me get back to that later. Alright, Rock. As I said, Rock can help back up the perks that actually would have been thrown away if they were getting hit by crit, and makes you standing. The only downside to this is if you get Rock, but your critical hit was actually a hit that was part of a Dynastian combo. That is the only thing that actually makes you vulnerable, because it will make you fully vulnerable to... It will make you fully vulnerable against whatever kind of combo that is. So it only works pretty well against legionaries and slower attacks like singleton attacks. So for that though, I feel like it's between B and A for that kind of purpose, because it helps back you up. But the disadvantage is that you'll be faced with all of the damage that you will be getting, all of the sequence, so you will be vulnerable to full sequence of attack. So you might be surprised, but it's gonna be on B. It's really good to back up and make you stand. It makes you stand, but if you actually think about it, if you face an opponent who doesn't do combos, if you face an opponent that does do combos, then Rock is just gonna be letting you be vulnerable to that. So therefore I'm just gonna be putting on B. Corner Cat. You won't really get that much callbacks during battles, okay? It does give a damage increase, but the chances of you getting combats with that damage boost is little and deserves the Z. Unfortunately, it is relatable, perfectly fitting for one set, aka the Star Chaser. That's when the perk is actually relatable. Other than that, if you really are looking forward to trying to get combats, you can try to use it yourself. But for me, no. Not really. Maybe damage emphasizers could actually help, but it doesn't really mind that matter, because you gotta be knocked down after a couple of hits after this perk triggers, and what's the point in that? Flurry, damage increase, although it does not stack, but it actually gives a damage increase, and the only thing that can stop it is whenever the combo is broken. So whenever you make a combo, this will activate. And since Dynastian have combo weapons, I'll be putting it in A, because it actually helps boost the damage quite a bit right here. Stun, really good to make the opponent vulnerable, and does undermine the opponent in that kind of manner by just putting stun the opponent, and then your opponent can't do anything, and just help the legionary face the combos. It's behaving in the same way. It's behaving in the similar way as interference. The difference is that the opponent can't do anything, while the opponent with interference can try to counteract, but they're like not allowed to block. But with stun, they cannot do anything and will get hit. Practically will get hit. So for that, it's between A and S, but we're putting on A because it helps undermine the opponent. Berserk, damage emphasizes is relatable, because Vaporization and Berserk is a very good mix, and there's some other perks that probably are here that can be damage emphasizing in one way or another. Berserk though, you have to sacrifice some health while dealing the double damage, so I feel like it will deserve an A or an S. That's what I'm thinking right here. What should I really do? Because we don't really have, well, we actually have a good portion of S perks from my perspective right here, but you actually lose some health, which is but it's actually a more fair trade for you, because you deal more damage to the opponent than the opponent deal damage to you. Like, you deal more damage than what you take damage from the kind of perk. And it also confiscates the way of playing perfectly if you want to do Berserk. But despite that, I'm gonna put it on S, because damage emphasizing can make it really dangerous, and it can also emphasize. That's actually why I actually wanted to put it on S, because it's working similarly as precision. Different things, you lose some health, and you can hit on a regular hit. That's making a different variety of an S interpretation for my own part. Those are 30 kind of perks, and I think we only are left with the Shadow Affinity. Shadow Affinity is only for accumulator builds and can be pretty much giving a lot of trouble, and therefore you gotta go to D. I'm sorry. And freaking what we have right here, Rising Tide, really? Okay, so Rising Tide, again, I've been talking about it, but this can help in accumulation whenever you do combos, so it's similar way as Flurry, so just give me put it right there. And that is the BossTheModern perk tier list on the latest update right here, guys. That is pretty much the BossTheModern update tier list. What do you guys think about this tier list? Is it actually relatable? Do you guys disagree on some of the things that I was just thinking right now? Was something just going to be better, BossTheModern, or should something be put lower, BossTheModern? Be sure to leave your tier list down in the comments below right here. This has been a long time talking, I know, and I try to keep the commentary as raw and fresh as I'm just picking perks and try to place it one another. Maybe I'll change my mind a little bit after. Maybe I'll do one of these later and change my mind a little bit. You never know. But this has been something interesting to do because I wanted to do something different, and therefore I was thinking, maybe do something that no other YouTubers have really done, but other YouTubers have done in the game, which is this. Maybe it's done and shared in social media, but not really done in YouTube. So therefore, here you go, guys. That is my point of view on where I want to put my perks there. And if you want to share your perk tier list, be sure to share that down in the comments below. And if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button to share some support. And if you new and enjoy my overall content, be sure to subscribe to my channel so that you will become a part of the BossTheModern community, where we're going to be doing fun stuff like this, play fun games with builds of these perks that I've just presented you guys in our arrangement, and also cover you guys with some news as this life by. And until then, the next video, I catch you guys in another one.